Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope your day and your week are going well so far. We've got a new day, which of course means a new MLB Player Prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day comes new opportunity to win some more money, and I've got 6 picks to go ahead and share with you guys for today's MLB slate. But first, before I dive into today's picks, a quick little recap of how we did last night. And if the thumbnail didn't give it away, guys, we had a fantastic night last night. A 4-1 performance on the video yesterday, including a massive hit with that Ian Happ over 1.5 total bases. That was a plus 175 hit for the boy. But yeah, 4-1 day. The only prop that didn't hit was that O'Neal Cruz over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. But a really solid day across the board for us here. That's the kind of day that we needed here. The vibes are high. We're feeling good going into today's video after a big night last night. By the way, thank you to everybody who commented yesterday. Prayers for my grandmother. I know I did obviously put a contest for it, but I could tell it was genuine from a lot of people. I really do appreciate it. My family saw all the comments. They were emotional seeing it all, seeing all the support. So very big thanks to everybody who commented yesterday and sending their prayers and thoughts for my grandmother. Really do appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And as promised, I was going to pick one lucky commenter to win a free $10 Amazon gift card. Shout out to Johnny XOXO4330. We're going to get in contact with you, get you a free $10 Amazon gift card as a part of yesterday's giveaway. So thank you very much, guys, for commenting. 6 picks coming right at you. Let's dive right in. Jumping right into the Outlier screen. Shout out to Outlier, the best sports betting tool on the market. We do have a special offer down below, a 7-day free trial to check it out for yourself. Outlier is the sponsor of today's video, but even if they weren't a sponsor, guys, they're the best sports betting tool. If you want to make money with sports betting, you got to have the right tool. It genuinely makes you a better sports bettor. I mean, I can tell you this. Ev can tell you this. I mean, we use it all the time for our videos. If you watch his videos, my videos, we use it all the time. It truly has made us better sports bettors, just like it can make you better sports bettors. And the best part is, after you finish your 7-day free trial, it's not like it's that expensive. It's like $20 a month. And listen, if you're winning money off of this, it should pay for itself realistically. So really solid tool here. But again, you get to try it for 7 days free for your first 7 days. So go ahead and check that out with the link down below in the description. Special thank you to Outlier for sponsoring today's video. All right, guys, the first of 6 props in today's slate. We have Rockies Braves, 7:20 p.m. first pitch. We're going Michael Harris II over half a strikeout here, available on DraftKings for -135 and BetMGM for -135. See, the data's pretty solid here. 8 of his last 10 games, he has cashed the over. He actually had cashed it in 8 consecutive games prior to September 1st versus the Phillies, where he did not strike out in an extra innings loss for the Braves. But again, you see here that 8 of his last 10 games, 80% hit rate with an average of 1.2 strikeouts per game average. Even if you go ahead and stretch the data out to the last 20 games, you see an 80% hit rate still. 16 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the over with an average of 1.25 strikeouts per game. So pretty good numbers there across the board for Michael Harris. But even if we go ahead and look at the whole season view, right? Still really good numbers. 68% hit rate, 58 out of 85 games played this year for the Braves. Michael Harris II has cashed the over. He's averaging 0.96 strikeouts per game this season. Really solid average there for us. The only piece of the data that's not fantastic is the head-to-head data. You do see just 2 of the last 7 matchups versus the Rockies. He's cashed the over. He's played them 3 times so far. No times this year. Apologies for that. No times this year. But 2 of the last 7 matchups, all these matchups taking place last season, he failed to cash the over. But head-to-head data aside, the data looks really, and it's all from last season. So, but the data this year looks absolutely fantastic for Michael Harris. The insights provided by Outlier. Michael Harris II has exceeded half a strikeout in 8 of his last 9 games, a 1.3 strikeout per game average over that 9-game span. Again, I just basically showed you guys that, but just to reiterate, thanks to the insights provided by Outlier. Now, looking at the matchup versus Kyle Freeland, not the best head-to-head data. He's 7 plate appearances since 2018, a 14.3% strikeout rate versus Freeland. He only struck out once in 7 plate appearances, but 7 plate appearances is a very small sample size. But the number I want you guys to focus on here is the strikeout percentage. You see Michael Harris this year, 24.8% strikeout percentage versus left-handed pitchers, which is actually an increase from his 23.2% mark overall. So slightly higher versus left-handed pitchers. And his walk percentage takes a pretty significant decrease to just 2.6%. So that's really good. And looking at Kyle Freeland's strikeout percentage, it is 18.1 overall, which is okay. But versus left-handed batters, you do see an increase of 21.2. Now, it is a smaller sample size. Only 52 batters faced this year that were left-handed. But a higher strikeout rate, 21.2. So that 21.2 versus the 24.8, those 2 high strikeout numbers, that's why I'm running with this prop. I tell you guys all the time, if you have both over 20% for the strikeout rate, it's a pretty good prop. And for minus 135 odds for a guy who's hitting this at a 68% hit rate this year, I think that's pretty solid value. All right, guys, and for our second pick of today's slate, we're actually sticking with the same game here, Rockies-Braves. We're going Matt Olson over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs for the Atlanta Braves. Again, we're getting this on DraftKings and BetMGM, both for minus 135 odds, just like the last prop. And again, like the last prop, the last 10 game data, pretty solid. 8 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, an average of 3.7, hits, runs, RBIs per game, an 80% hit rate over his last 10 games. If we go ahead and search the data out to the last 20 games, it's still decent, not as good. 12 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the over, an average of 2.6 hits, runs, RBIs per game, and a 60% hit rate over his last 20 games. And then look at the 2024 data overall. Again, not great, but not the worst we've seen. 48% hit rate this year, 66 out of 137 games this season. Matt Olson has cashed the over with an average of 1.93 hits, runs, RBIs per game. So the average is where we want it to be, although the overall trend is not exactly where we want it to be. Look at the head-to-head data here. It's really solid. You see 7 of his last 10 meetings with the Rockies, he has cashed the over. It's a 70% hit rate, an average of 3.5 hits, runs, RBIs per game. The last couple games, he's had some really big successes versus the Rockies, including on August 10th of this year. He had a 10 hit run RBI performance and what was 11-8 win for the Braves. He had 2 hits, 2 runs, and 6 RBIs versus the Rockies there. So pretty solid head-to-head data, pretty solid data overall for the most part. Looking down below, again, the insights provided by Outlier. Matt Olson has exceeded 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs in 8 of his last 9 games, an average of 4.1 hits, runs, RBIs per game over the last 9 games. A really good mark there. Look at the head-to-head data now. And it's decent. Not the best data we've ever seen, not the best numbers we've ever seen, but it's decent. Matt Olson versus Kyle Freeland dating back to 2018, 17 plate appearances, just a 200 batting average off him, which, again, I'd like that to be a little bit higher, but it's not terrible. Looking at the numbers this year, though, Matt Olson batting 234 overall. However, versus left-handed pitchers, you do see an increase to 268, so that does bode very well in our favor there. And Kyle Freeland, 551 ERA overall this season. 294 batting average allowed. This really high, obviously. Now, versus left-handed batters like Matt Olson, you do see the batting average just decrease there to 261, but 261 is still a pretty decently high batting average. So, although it is a decrease, we'd like it to be at that 294 number. Even at the 261 number, it's not bad. And look at the ERA, you do see a nice increase there to 6. And again, a smaller sample size. He's only faced off against 52 batters that were left-handed this year. We do obviously know from the last prop, the strikeout rate's definitely higher. But just 11.8 strikeout percentage versus Freeland since 2018. That's 17 plate appearances, which is a pretty decent sample size. So yeah, the data isn't as fantastic on this prop as it was the last one, but still really solid data overall. And for minus 135, again, I really think it's really solid value there. Guys, we are hitting the 8-minute mark in today's video. So if you're watching at this point, thank you. Thank you for watching all the way through and watching through the video. Go ahead and comment 8 down below in the comments if you are still watching the video at this point. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, moving on. Our third prop of today's slate, we're going on to the Guardians-Royals game, 7:40 p.m. first pitch. We're going Tommy Pham of the Royals under 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. We have our first plus money play of the day. This is available on DraftKings and BetMGM, both for plus 100 odds. And for a plus money play, the data is pretty solid. 8 of his last 10 games, Tommy Pham has cashed this under an average of 0.6 hits, runs, RBIs per game over the last 10 games. Even if you go and stretch the data out to the last 20 games, still really solid. 16 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the under, an average of 0.8 hits, runs, RBIs per game, and an 80% hit rate. And you look at so far in 2024, 53% hit rate for Tommy Pham on this under. You see 50 out of 95 games this year, he's cashed the under, averaging 1.67 hits, runs, RBIs per game. You see, he was red hot to start the year off. He has definitely cooled off since then. Obviously, these were also when he was with the White Sox. He's now obviously with the Royals now. But you do see he was really red hot to start the year off with Chicago. And then since being traded to the Royals, he has fallen off a little bit. And the head-to-head data is pretty solid as well. 6 of his last 9 meetings, nice, with the Cleveland Guardians. He has cashed the under 67% hit rate, an average of 1.22 hits, runs, RBIs per game versus the Guardians over that 9-game span. So like I said, guys, data looks pretty good so far. The insights provided by Outlier. Again, this is kind of just reiterating some of the things I said, but it's good to look at one more time. Tommy Pham has failed to exceed 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs in 7 of his last 8 games. An average of just 0.4 hits, runs, RBIs per game average over the last 8 games. And now looking at the matchup stats, you could see why maybe this is a plus money play. Tommy Pham is batting .253 overall this season, but versus right-handed pitchers, you do see an increase. So it's even higher at .259. Not a massive increase, but an increase nonetheless to a .259 batting average versus right-handed pitchers. That doesn't fare very well for us there, but not to worry, because I think the pitching matchup here saves it for us. Tanner Bibby this year has been fantastic. 3.65 ERA overall, 2.35 batting average allowed. So pretty good numbers overall. It gets even better, though, versus right-handed pitchers, and we do have a right-handed batters, and we do have a pretty large sample size as well. He's faced 253 batters that were right-handed this season, 3.03 ERA, so a pretty nice dip from his overall 3.65 mark, and his batting average allowed just 1.85 versus right-handed batters. That's actually a pretty impressive mark there for Tanner Bibby. And you see his home runs per 9 drop, his OBA drop. So across the board, you see green, really solid data there in the pitching matchup. And Cleveland's bullpen's also pretty solid as well. So overall, really solid marks here. For the data's overall good. I think the matchup's good. The only thing that can give you a little bit of worry here is the fact that Pham is batting .259 off of right-handed pitchers this season. But like I said, the recent data, 16 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the under. So I really do like the spy here for plus money. Great value on this prop. All right, guys, for the fourth prop of today's slate, we're moving on to the Mariners Athletics game, 9:40 p.m. first pitch. We have another plus money play on our hands here with J.P. Crawford of the Mariners under 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. The same prop we're getting for plus 105 on BetMGM and plus 100 on DraftKings. Once again, guys, the data is fantastic on this prop. Each of his last 9 games, he has cashed the under, an average of just 0.8 hits, runs, RBIs per game over his last 10 games. The last time he cashed this over, we've got to go back to July 14th. He had 1 hit, 1 run, and 1 RBI, and was a 3-2 loss to the Angels. So it's been over a month, close to 2 months, since the last time he's cashed this over. Even when you go ahead and stretch that data out to the last 20 games, 16 of his last 20 games he's cashed the under, an 80% hit rate, literally the same marks that you saw with the last prop. So really good numbers here for J.P. Crawford here, 1.45 hits, runs, RBIs. He had a couple of big games there that kind of skew the average, but overall, a lot of cashes on this under lately. And in 2024 so far, a 57% hit rate on this under. 47 out of 82 games this year, he has cashed the under, an average of 1.67 hits, runs, RBIs per game. Now, the head-to-head data is not fantastic. You see 8 of his last 17 games versus the Oakland A's, he's cashed the under. Just a 47% hit rate, and he's averaging 2.24 hits, runs, RBIs per game. But each of his last 3 matchups versus the Oakland A's, all which take place this season, he has cashed the under, including when they played last night. He had 1 run, no hits, no RBIs, and was a 5-4 win for Oakland. He's faced off with the A's 4 times this year. He's cashed the under in 3 out of 4 games. It's a 75% hit rate. So although overall the recent data is not fantastic, this year's data, pretty solid. Again, the insights provided by Outlier. J.P. Crawford has failed to exceed 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs in 9 straight games and averages 0.6 hits, runs, RBIs per game. Although we don't have a ton of pitching data to go off of here, we do have J.P. Crawford's numbers. He's batting 195 overall this year, which, spoiler alert, is not very good. And versus right-handed pitchers, spoiler alert again, it's even worse. 162 batting average off of right-handed pitchers this season. So really bad numbers there for J.P. Crawford. We're going up against a pitcher here in Ginn for the Oakland A's. He's only pitched a total of 8.5 innings this season with a 5.19 ERA. So not fantastic numbers for him, but we're more or less betting on the J.P. Crawford side of this thing, less about the pitching matchup, more about the fact that Crawford is struggling to hit the ball in general this year. I know it's an inexperienced pitcher. You would think this is kind of the matchup where he could get a hit, where he could put up some numbers. I am still betting with the fact that he's batting 162 off of right-handed pitchers. That's all right-handed pitchers, experienced, non-experienced, young, old. He's struggling off of righties this year, and I think that's probably going to go ahead and continue tonight. The data shows it. For plus 105 or plus 100, depending where you're betting it, again, really solid value. And sticking with this game and sticking with the hot trends, we're going with Lawrence Butler of the Oakland A's over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. It's available on PrizePicks -119, DraftKings -125, and BetMGM for -125. Butler's cashed this in 10 consecutive games. I've been watching this prop pretty close to the last couple weeks, and a couple of times I thought about putting on, and I haven't, and I kicked myself in the ass for not betting this more often. He's cashed it now in 10 consecutive games for the Oakland A's, averaging 4.2 hits, runs, RBIs over his last 10 games. Even looking at his last 20 games, a 75% hit rate. 15 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the over with an average of 3 hits, runs, RBIs per game. I actually think it's like 12 straight games in a row he's cashed the over. So really good marks there for Lawrence Butler of late. Even though the overall season data is not fantastic, you see in 2024, just a 45% hit rate on this over, an average of 1.97 hits, runs, RBIs per game. You do see here, basically from July on, he had a little bit of a cold streak there in the beginning of August through the middle of August, but he's gotten hot again as we get into September here. But the last couple months, he's been pretty good for Oakland. And yeah, the head-to-head data is not fantastic, but they did play last night. He did cash the over last night. 1 run, 1 hit, no RBIs on that 5-4 win for Oakland. But just a 33% hit rate versus the Mariners dating back to last season. Looking down below, the insights provided by Outlier, like I said, Lawrence Butler has exceeded 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs in 12 straight games. I don't have enough fingers to count that. It's 12 straight games. An average of 4. That's 4 hits, runs, RBIs per game average over the last 12 games. Now, look at the matchup down below here. Very small sample size versus Luis Castillo. Only 2 plate appearances in 2018. He has struck out 1 of the 2. No hits, but again, only 2 plate appearances. Very small sample size. Now, you do see that the Butler's numbers do drop. He's batting .265 overall this year. That does drop to .260 versus right-handed pitchers, which is a little concerning there. But Castillo, overall this year, .365 ERA, .238 batting average allowed. Versus lefties, gets a lot worse. .491 ERA, a whopping .280 batting average allowed. He is significantly worse versus left-handed batters, and there's a large sample size. This isn't a small sample size. 329 batters faced that were left-handed, struggling, absolutely struggling. .491 ERA, .280 batting average allowed, 2 home runs per 9 innings, .362 OBA. So, although you do see, kind of catch my breath there, although Lawrence Butler, you do see a slight decrease in his numbers. .260 batting average overall is still pretty solid, especially when you compare that, when you match that, I should say, with Castillo's numbers. It's a really solid matchup. He's cashed in 12 straight games. We're going to go ahead and keep riding the hot hand here and riding with Lawrence Butler here on the over. All right, guys, in our 6th and final prop of today's slate, we're moving on to the Dodgers-Angels game, 9:38 p.m. first pitch. We're going Shohei Ohtani over 1.5 total bases. Available on pretty much every sports book, but it looks like Caesars -106, DraftKings -110 is probably your best bet, although also available on Underdog and on FanDuel. And again, guys, data solid on this one. 7 of his last 10 games, he has cashed the over. It's a 70% hit rate with an average of 2.9 total bases per game over his last 10 games. Look at the season total, 2024, a 56% hit rate on the over for Shohei Ohtani. 76 out of 135 games this year, he's cashed the over. Again, an average of 2.45 total bases per game average. And the head-to-head data, also really strong as well. Versus his former team in the LA Angels. Each of the last 2 meetings versus the Angels, he has cashed the over with an average of 4.5 bases per game average versus his former team. Does Shohei hate the Angels? Does he have any ill will toward the Angels? I don't think so. But you got to have a little extra juice on you when you're playing your former team, right? I would assume so. Especially because this game is in Anaheim, so it's at the Angels versus the last time they played, I believe, was in the Dodger Stadium. Now you're returning to that stadium for the first time since leaving. It's going to be emotional. You're going to be charged up. You're going to be juiced up. I do like this spot a lot for Shohei. This is more about the matchup in the return to Anaheim, his big return versus his former team. But the data is still pretty decent overall. The inside Shohei Ohtani has exceeded 1.5 bases in 5 of his last 6 games on the road, an average of 3.3 bases per game average over that span. And yeah, the key matchup stats are not fantastic here. You do see a dip in Shohei's numbers versus left-handed pitchers. You see just batting .264, but again, .264 is not a bad mark. It's still a pretty solid mark overall. It is a decrease, though, from his overall .292 batting. His extra base hit percentage takes a massive drop, which is a little concerning here, but still, 35.3% is still pretty solid. And looking at Detmers of the Angels, 8.10 ERA versus left-handed batters. Now, the batting average has dropped to .242, but that 8.10 ERA is concerning. The .500 slugging percentage and the 50% extra base hit percentage. All that screams recipe for an extra base hit. I'm not going to put it on the official record, but Shohei to hit a home run in this game feels like a pretty solid prop. I'll go ahead and show you the odds for that and what the payout would be. Again, shout out to Outlier for this. We'll go ahead and look at the home runs. Home run tonight's plus 270 on BetMGM, plus 265 FanDuel, plus 260 on DraftKings. You guys are looking for a little, you know what? We're gonna add it to the record. I'll throw it on there. I feel pretty confident he's gonna hit a home run tonight. I know the matchup isn't necessarily the greatest of all time. With again, we saw the batting average allowed and everything, but 500 slugging percentage versus lefties and a 50% extra base hit percentage versus lefties in Anaheim. His first time back in Anaheim as a member of the Dodgers. A home run for plus 260 or plus 270, depending where you're getting it. Pretty decent value. So we got a lot riding on this Shohei prop. Now we have 7 props in today's slate. All right, guys, so those are all 7 picks from today's slate. Quick little recap of all the picks. We have Matt Olson over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Michael Harris over half a strikeout. Tommy Pham under 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Shohei Ohtani over 1.5 total bases. Shohei Ohtani over half a home run, so to hit 1 home run. J.P. Crawford under 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. And Lawrence Butler over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Guys, I will put this link down in the description and the pinned comments. You guys can easily go ahead and follow along. But that does it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, guys. One more time, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Shout out to Outlier one more time for sponsoring today's video. Again, link down below, 7-day free trial to check it out for yourself. Guys, I will be back tomorrow with another MLB Player Prop video. But until then, I hope you're all winners. Have a fantastic Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully up a lot of units.